Welcome to the Polestar 1, a very rare, super unique Swedish supercar, if you will, that we have here at the shop today. And the reason I wanted to make a video with this particular car is it's matte finished paint. There's a lot of intricacies that go into having one of these vehicles, how you maintain them, how you protect them. They can be similar, but also very different to glossy paint, especially when you get into the chemical realm. So we're gonna talk through all of that today on how to properly wash your matte or satin surfaced vehicle. Welcome back to another out of spec detailing video. Let's jump into it. Jumping in here, let's just quickly look around this vehicle. And as you can probably see, this thing is covered in filth. Road grime back here. We've got exhaust gas stuff back here that's, clogged all the pores in this paint. It's actually interesting to note, matte painted vehicles do tend to hold a lot more dirt because of that jagged random surface, if you will. The contaminants get stuck on there a lot easier than a glossy finished vehicle. Think about that. If it's smooth like this, a lot harder for those contaminants to get bonded to the paint. Now here, of course, we've got filthy wheels. Again, this thing just did 4,500 miles across the country, back to the middle of the country, and yeah, just completely covered. Don't know if we've got tar here from the road. I mean, this thing is caked in bugs too, and one of that is really, really tricky to get off, even on glossy finished vehicles. So we're gonna have to be very diligent in the chemicals we use here and really pay attention to that. If you were to just, start wiping these and really scrubbing those bugs off, what are you gonna do? Well, you're probably gonna scratch the heck out of this paint. And again, like I mentioned before, permanently stained in the vehicle. So our process needs to be dialed in here. Now, is this super different from washing a glossy vehicle? No, but there's some caveats, especially when it comes to chemicals. So let's talk a little bit about the tools you're gonna need. Of course, you're gonna want some sort of pressure washer and foam cannon and nozzle here. I'll leave all the links in the description below to what I use here at the shop and recommendations that I would have for you at home. The other important thing is using a 2-bucket wash method, exactly the same as, regular glossy paint. Big thing in here, have your grit guards set up, super important, our clear water rinse, our soap bucket. Now, probably the most important part of washing this vehicle is choosing a good car shampoo. And I really like this car shampoo. I actually use it on glossy vehicles like this BMW X3M that is looking insanely nice. But using a product like this, the reason I like it, there's no added sealants, waxes, anything that's gonna add gloss to this vehicle. The important thing is, this is a matte safe car shampoo. Super important to understand that. If you're gonna go buy one, I really recommend this stuff. Very economical, provides a massive amount of lubrication on the paint, and is very, very effective at getting dirt and grime off of here. Now, speaking of dirt and grime, down here I'm noticing we've got a lot of, tire, tar deposits, really, really nasty. We are going to pre-treat those before our rinse. And that's something to talk about here. So, especially on the front end of this vehicle, what we're gonna do is fog this thing down with our bug remover. I use P&S Bug Off. I'll leave a link in the description for that. It is incredible, super economical, but extremely powerful at getting bugs off. But it is also very gentle and safe on paint. We're also gonna spray down the tar. Before we rinse this, once we have those two areas covered, we're gonna foam this down with our car shampoo, let it eat all that dirt away, let it do its work. That's what chemicals are for. If we're just come in here, pressure wash this off, start washing it, tons and tons of chance for scratching this paint off. Now, I'm gonna quickly start here on the wheels. You guys have seen this on how to wash car, no different on this one. So I'm gonna quickly do a time lapse of those, and then we'll jump into the paint. wheels are looking amazing now. Got those super clean. Now, before we start our wash process, let's get all of our tools set up. Huge tip there. You don't want to be, getting water on this thing and then having to refill your soap, refill your bug remover, anything like that. So get both of your rinse and wash bucket set up. Now, I like to use 3 different mitts. So these 2 green ones here are for the main areas, the roof, the hood, areas like that. This one right here, this darker gray one, is made for areas like this with huge levels of contamination, lots of risk for scratching. I like to keep those separate, just helps keep everything clean. Now, we have only clear water in here. In our wash bucket in here, I have about 3 ounces of that Adams car shampoo filled up about halfway. I personally like these smaller buckets instead of the huge 5-gallon ones, just my personal preference. Now, here in the IK sprayer, we've got our bug off. The cool thing about this, instead of grabbing a bottle like this, coming on here, spraying it, not only does it make your hand cramp a lot less, but it helps the product. And why I say that is it's a foaming spray, so it fogs it on there, really gets in there, eats away those bugs. I'll show you that. Now, other things we need to have ready. Got to make sure our foam cannon's ready. This is the MTM Hydro PF.22 and our MTM sprayer over here. So what I want to do now is make sure, again, also we have Geon tar here. So we're going to spray that on the lower sides before we rinse this down. We're going to spray down all of the bugs and then foam it, let it sit and rinse. Super critical. If you guys are working outside at your house, make sure you are in the shade. Really, really critical to do. Also, make sure your paint is not super warm. If your hood, you've been driving this car or whatever vehicle it is, and your hood's super warm, that can play into issues with soap. So now that we've got everything set up, let's get washing. First and foremost, what I like to do, let's grab our IK sprayer with bug off here and go to town. Now that we're letting that sit here, it's completely fine to get it on other areas. This is safe on glass, paint of course. Now let's get these tar areas. So this is Geon tar. Make sure you shake this up. We're just gonna lightly spray this on here and let it start eating away all of that nasty contamination in this area, especially down here. So the wonderful thing about these 2 products, using bug remover and that tar remover here, it's doing a lot of the work for us. So we're not coming in here scrubbing, causing scratches. Super, super important. Let the chemicals do their work. Now the tar remover, you gotta be a little careful with that stuff. It can be a little tricky, so make sure we're now gonna foam this down, let everything sit and rinse it off, and then start our hand wash process. Now that we've got this foam down, we're gonna let it sit for a while, and I can already see, look at the bug remover working. You can see it melting these bugs off. Now again, these are heavily baked on. From what I can tell so far, this car does not look like it has any sort of protection. So kind of worst case scenario, if you will. We've got no protection, bugs have sat on there, baked for a while. So before I even start scrubbing any of these, we're gonna let the soap sit, let it soften all those bugs up. We'll see how it does once we get to pressure washing it to see if that releases some of the bug splatter and grime. Same thing with the tar. That's pretty heavy contamination, if you will. It's important to not let this dry, but this is such a critical step. So my next process and thoughts here are, once I'm ready to go here, start rinsing it. I'm gonna full rinse the vehicle. I'm then gonna see, okay, where are we at on the front? Where are we at on the sides as far as tar and bugs? Do I need to reapply that product? If we do reapply that product, it will help us, again, release any of the residual bugs, grime, dirt, any of that, and then we're gonna foam on top of it. So if you guys are wondering, is this similar to washing a gloss car? 100% absolutely. Using the 2 to 3 bucket system, highly recommend you have. Absolutely. Actually, I do absolutely only recommend using one bucket for wheels and having a wash and pre-air water rinse bucket. Super, super critical. But I can already see this is really starting to take care of this grime. You can see all the wheel stuff coming off here, and we are still okay here. Important to note, this soap is pH neutral, so make sure you guys are using that. That is pH neutral, mat safe, not gonna harm any coatings, protectants that you have on here, but is not gonna leave any sort of residue or finish on there to affect your satin finish. So I think we're right at that point now. Let's get this thing rinsed down. So before you guys freak out, you're gonna look at the paint here and go, oh my God, you made it glossy. Well, that's because this has zero protection. I mean, literally nothing. This is sheeting water like crazy. This is soaking wet here. So just after our pre-rinse, look at how much work we did here without touching the paint. So important to understand that. We got a massive amount of the bugs off. Now down here, really caked. Again, I think the important thing here to do, let the chemicals do your work, and then when it does need, because this has no protection, so everything's really clogged in the paint, you're gonna have to, normally hand wash it. The point here is all of this stuff gets softened up and then it easily comes off. Using our 2-bucket rinse, we should have no issue as far as scratches. We got a lot of the tar off the side here, but still you can really see how much this paint is really holding, especially back here, getting a lot of this crud off. Also noticing this here, looks like some scratches. Those are likely permanently in the paint. So that's what I'm talking about as far as matte paint. It's very tricky to maintain. So I'm gonna have another video talking, protection on this, like I said before, but there is zilch on this car. So let's get these areas resprayed down again. More tar remover here. We did actually pretty decent over here, but definitely you can still see huge chunks in here. Getting that kind of worked out, that's the important thing. So don't just come in here, start washing stuff. That's how you really start causing issues. So I'd say we got, 60 to 70% of the initial grime off, which my opinion is actually really good for having no protection. Great, so we've now got this again fogged with the bug remover. We've got our tar remover on, and then we've got our snow foam. What we're gonna do is come out of here from our rinse bucket, back into our wash bucket, scrub it on the grit guard, and we're gonna start our hand wash process. Here it is absolutely critical to not scrub. I am basically just trying to hold the microfiber on here, or the wash mitt, if you will, on the paint. Not trying to scrub, don't get aggressive. The big difference with matte paint here is you may want to keep continually rinsing out your wash pads a little more than normal. So if you're used to washing your car, I would recommend let's just keep going back into that wash bucket a little bit more often. I'm gonna flop over here to the other side. I like to work in straight lines. You don't wanna scrub this and start making scratches. That's how you do that, especially with this level of contamination. It is super heavy as far as contaminants, so keep that in mind. Now, if you do come up to a bug in a certain area and it needs a little more, you can put a little pressure. I just don't want you to sit here and do this type deal. You can see how sticky this paint is though, as these wash mitts are just completely stuck on here to the paint. Really crazy. I really, really, really wish this thing had some sort of protection on it. Now here again, I'm gonna show you on the front end. So I put my buckets back here. I only did the hood. So we're gonna come back in here, grab our other one, make sure we wring it out, come back into our wash, and now touch the paint here. can see as I glide over this, those bugs are really starting to come off. That's because we've put bug remover on here twice. We also have softened them up. We foamed it down. So they're nice and soft now and ready to come off pretty darn easily. Just seeing any tar spots on here. This thing picked up a ton of dirt and grime on the way. So like there, I would now come back into our wash bucket. If you feel you need one more wash like I do on here, just keep repeating this process. Normally I'd probably do the whole bumper with one wipe of these and it would be no issue, but here, being that this is matte paint, be very, very mindful. So the nice thing on here while we're doing this is we've got a ton of lubrication with not only soap, but water really releasing all this. And honestly, guys, looks like we got 98% of those bugs off. I'm seeing that there is quite a few rock chips. Again, we'll talk about that as far as PPF in the next video. So I've been working on the other side, and what I can tell you guys is this takes a little bit longer, especially this car not having protection. I'm finding what's helpful is to go over an area, flip the rag, and come back, not the rag, sorry, the wash mitt, and go back over that area. I can actually hear it. It won't pick up on camera, but I can hear it pick up that contamination. As soon as I flip over, it sounds nice and smooth. Now, we're at a point where we're working slowly to where this is starting to dry. Now, this is gonna happen especially outside. I've got the perfect environment in here, but worst case scenario for the paint, we wanna ensure that this is not drying. You can get streaky and spots. It's okay with this soap, but I wouldn't push it too far. So now we just need to refoam it, kind of reinvigorate everything, and then keep washing. So what's important to know, what I just did, is the other side, I have already washed that. So it's pretty much good to go, ready to be rinsed down and then dried. But while I'm still working on this car, I want to ensure that we're not getting those spots. So by refoaming that down, that's going to mitigate any sort of contaminants that you have in your water, as far as parts per million, that's going to leave water spotting, anything like that. So let's just continue to wash here, again going top to bottom. So I'm using this as my up line. I'm not going below that yet. I will do that absolutely last, because that's where all of our dirt and really nasty grime is right now. So again, I'm being very gentle here, guys, just keeping this on my on the paint here, not scrubbing, not going crazy. So again, what I was finding is if I do this, flip it over, it becomes so much smoother. I can feel all those contaminants got picked up, and very gentle. Again, we've got so much lubrication going on here. I'm not worried about scratching it. That's why I like using the snow foam. Actually, an interesting note, I see a lot of guys foam the car down, then rinse it, then touch it with mitts. Use all the soap there. It's just lubrication. It helps, especially on matte paint. Even on regular paint, it's really, really good and very helpful to use. So I want you to notice how I go down the door here. So I'm going to start here at the top. I'm going to split this door in half. And I'm just going to gently wipe down, again in those straight lines. If I have an area like this with some good grease here, gently rub that, very gently. Come in there, wipe it, and then now, boom, flip, and continue going. It's insane how much smoother this feels now. So lastly, we've got our high impact areas, or our non-high impact areas done. The top areas down the doors, not the lower sections. The part that's always super dirty is the back, so I leave those for last. I'm gonna do the trunk lid, come down, and then I'm gonna finally finish there on the lower sections to go. And lastly, you guys can see how long this is taking. This is already starting to dry up here. So I'm gonna finish up the last section here, this lower area, again, using my separate wash mitt here. Tons of tar down here, so just being as gentle as I possibly can, but yet still getting that stuff off. Really kind of tricky balance here to deal with. And we are clean. All the bugs gone, all the tar off. You can see how quickly this has dried, but look at that paint. Now, I pushed it a little bit more than I would probably recommend you guys to, but the nice thing with this soap is if it does start to dry in areas like this, it doesn't cause any streaking or haze like that, but you do want to make sure you get it off. So lastly here, we're going to turn on our clear water rinse. So this goes through the CR spotless system here. Now, if you don't have this, I understand. Lastly, what we're going to do, we're going to add temporary protection to this. So during our rinse, we're going to use Geon Wet Coat. Totally fine to be used on satin surfaces. This stuff's incredible. Why? You can use it on glass, regular paint, trim, wheels, everything. It is freaking awesome. It adds about a 3 to 6 month protection. I have to put something on here because I'll show you guys when I rinse this, there is zero, zilch, nada as far as protection. So let's get this thing rinsed off and then we'll talk through the drying phase. Look at how this thing holds on to water. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. So cool thing, Geon Wet Coat here. All you do, come in here and spray it. Look how immediately that changes that. So this is adding just a little layer of protection. And then I'm gonna come back in, do this in small sections. And look at the protection that just added there. What a freaking difference. Geon Wet Coat, one of the best products out there. Use it on top of ceramic coatings. You can see I kind of missed this little area here. So you just kind of play with it, get a nice little layer built up here and go to town. It is so easy to use, light protection, and makes it, you can see how silky smooth this looks. No shine added, just perfection. So lastly here, look at how this paint is beating up. I'm gonna show you a quick after the fact, walk around the car, show you all the areas, but I just wanna show you again how incredible Wet Coat is here on the wheel. So you spray it on here, you notice like you've got a lot of water just standing around. All you do, come in here, spray this. Make sure you get inside the barrel. It is okay to get it on the actual rotor there. It will burn off pretty much immediately. Look at the beads there. And lastly, just how that water sits on there. It doesn't always let it get away or fully on there. So I like to just spray it again. You'll see in the time lapse that I was doing that. Very, very helpful. Before we get this bad boy dry, let's see how we did. And look at the water behavior on this. Beating up so nice. Wet Coat, guys, is one of the best detailing products on the market, bar none. It's incredible because areas like this that are super complex, spray it on there, get a little protection. Grills like this. I mean, it makes everything look so nice. There is no residue on here, I promise you. So we're gonna be going through drying this. Check out the wheels. It is just one of the most unique products on the market, how it goes on. And look at that. We did not add shine to this. It still maintains that satin, silky look, but it feels a lot smoother now. So a lot of the times when I dry normal glossy cars like this, you'll see me use something like a waterless wash, a detail spray as a drying aid with a drying towel. On this, since I spent so much time deconning this car, really going through getting all that crud off, I am just going to use a perfectly clean drying towel. Now, there's a few options for drying these cars, and let's talk through them. So this hanging on the wall here is a blow car dryer. This is a heated, filtered car dryer. So you can basically, when you have protection like this on here, come in here, dry it off. The thing I don't like about that for you DIY guys is you likely don't have a CR spotless system like this. Now, if you're washing outside, pull your car into the garage, wipe it down with the towels, and then use something like this to clear out all of the junk out of like headlights and grills and everything like that. But I really don't recommend using it on the whole car. It is nice that you're not touching the paint, but typically I find you get water spots, then you have to go back and kind of touch them up. So I like using the drying towel method, and let's jump in to get this bad boy dry. So this, as of right now, is my preferred drying towel. This is made by the Rag Company. It is absolutely massive. You'll see a lot of people do this. It is a little tricky for me to do that, being one-handed, so this may not apply to you, but typically what I do is fold it into quarters and then just go on and gently touch the paint. We're just trying to scoop up the water. If you're trying to clean with your drying towel, you've done something wrong. But this thing is so smooth now. It is incredible. So I just did that entire hood and barely filled up that 1/4. That's why these are so cool. Probably need 2, maybe 3 for a car. It's really not that big of a deal, but it's very, very simple to dry these off. Just make sure you're not working in a super windy environment where there's a lot of contamination out there. It's blowing onto the paint, you know, getting dirt and crud like that onto the paint. That can be really, really tricky. So I'm just gonna continue to focus here on the paint. I'll come back to the glass actually last. I'm just gonna work my way down the car. When I feel that it's starting to get a little too filled up with water, I've got plenty more sides. So now I'm gonna come here, I'll flip this over. It is so insanely simple to dry this thing off. If you don't have any protection on a car like this, it takes so many drying towels because you saw how much water was sticking on there, where this has that nice little barrier now. Again, I'm gonna leave that bottom area, just a little OCD on that. So that entire section, I've only used 2 parts of the towel. It is just so cool. So I'll flip this over again. Now I've got a fresh, clean side. Come in here, let's dry the front end off here. And all these intricate areas is where that blow car dryer really comes in very helpfully. And once we're done with our initial towel dry, come in there, blast all that out, and this thing will be 100% dry. Well, we've got the paint mostly dry now. And the why I say mostly is all of these seams hold so much water. You can actually see over here, maybe on camera, the mirror is dripping quite a bit. What we want to do is make sure we get all that water out of all those crevices, because this can cause some water spotting, streaking, things like that that are very difficult to deal with on matte paint. That's where something like blow car dryer comes in. Again, that heated, filtered air that goes on there. My personal preference, I see a lot of detailers out there use leaf blowers, things like that. That's fine and dandy. The issue with that, one, it's not heated, which I find does help a lot. And number 2 is not filtered. A lot of the times you're basically taking all those air particles and firing them at your paint, basically sandblasting it at times. So just be mindful of that. So I'm gonna take my microphones off here because this thing is crazy loud. I'm gonna put in some headphones, show you around a time lapse of getting all the water out, and we are finally done washing the matte white Polestar 1. And here we are. Now, after a couple hours of washing this thing, this was an extensive process for sure. Lots of contamination, but look at the results. This thing is sparkling. Not glossy, not shiny, perfectly satin, exactly how it should look. I'm happy to say we got all the tar, bugs, all that road grime we've accumulated from the cannonball attempt, and yeah, super pleased with it. I'm gonna have a follow-up video coming to this talking real protection. Now, wet coat is great to use on here, but I think you need to go a little bit more long-term, mainly PPF and even ceramic coatings on top of that PPF. I'll discuss those in the next video. Anyways, thanks for joining us on another out of spec detailing video. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.